invitation call for the European Conscious Leaders Summit. Welcome, everybody. This session is recorded, so you may see this in a delayed mode. And the housekeeping may not apply to you. I'm asking everybody to mute their phone. This makes it easier. You've seen that we recorded, and if you do not consent, we suggest you switch off your cameras. And for those online, we ask that you basically reserve your questions at the end. We have a lot of topics to talk about, and there should be time, 15 minutes for questions and suggestions. It's not just questions.
Smartphone connected.
Of what this actually is about. And if we run out of time, Claudia will actually insert at some point my email. Many of you have it, but for those that don't, so that you can actually address any question later after this call, and this includes suggestions. So let me quickly open this by giving a framework. What is the summit about? And the summit actually is about two fundamental convictions that people that co-created the summit buy into, and we believe most participants actually do. The first one is that business is a force for good, that doing business consciously is a way how to actually do business well financially, as well as doing good for the benefit of people and planet. The second conviction is that, and I'll quote one of my favorite quotes, in this case from Margaret Mead, never underestimate the power of dedicated group of people to change the course of history. Actually, nothing else ever did. And adapted to this group of people, it really is never underestimate the power of conscious leaders to change the way how business is done consciously. So we firmly believe that there's a lot of power in building a community of conscious leaders. And these are the two principles upon which the summit is built. Now, conscious business, conscious leadership is a broad term. We typically refer to it as being leadership that is purpose-driven for the benefit of people and planet, that is actually addressing the benefit of all stakeholders, that is ethical, that is sustainable, that is human-centered. So this is what we mean when we refer to conscious business, acknowledging there's an endless number of ways how people can actually do business consciously, whatever the entry point is for any of the people that are welcome to participate. And we fully recognize that this is very difficult. Doing good and doing well, avoiding the tough choices, is something very challenging. There's many obstacles. What the summit is about, and that refers to the power of community of conscious leaders, is actually harvesting the answers that lie within the people that have experienced it firsthand. We believe this is actually where most of the answers lie. There's a room for consultants, there's a room for professors that teach that, but we want to actually tap into the firsthand experience of conscious leaders that have actually worked through this, that have struggled, that have faced some obstacles, that overcame these obstacles. And we believe there's so much wisdom up and beyond the experience in the conscious leaders coming together. As a consequence, the program of the summit, besides two keynotes, very inspiring people, the dominant part of the summit will be spent actually in coming together as an auditorium or in smaller Learnshops, and we'll allude more to those in later, and actually explore together, learn together, challenge each other, dare together, and as a consequence, learn and grow together. So you see this element of highly participative as well as co-creational element. We believe it's through this engagement that most of the development happens. And that's not invented by us. Most people that grow and learn, they learn by doing, by actively engaging, and not simply by listening to. That's really the foundation of how we designed the summit. And we'll talk more about that, Laura will, in terms of the art of hosting, on how we want to fully bring this to wealth. What do we think you're going to take away from the summit? There's actually three things. We believe there's going to be something very practical. Some people like to call them hacks, some very specific ways out of that joint wisdom of conscious leaders, how they addressed challenges, obstacles, problems that other conscious leaders face. That's number one. Number two, we believe you're going to actually come back with an expanded horizon of possibilities and the confidence of what is possible, because you will firsthand witness other conscious leaders that have faced the same challenges, that have walked in your shoes, and they found a variety of solutions. Nobody pretends that any of these solutions fits to you, but in this big space of possibilities and things that they experience, we believe you're going to take away a lot of expanded horizon and confidence of what really is possible. And thirdly, we believe that you're going to take away the support of a community of conscious leaders. And we'll talk a bit more about that, because this goes beyond the summit. It is not limited to a single event, a day and a half, but actually goes on in some activities that use that power of doing it together and reinforcing each other, challenging and helping and developing together. That is a continuous journey. So we design it as a continuous journey and do not limit ourselves to the summit itself. I do want to shed one last technical info on what does all that cost? What are the pricing? Because there's several informations on the web. And the truth is, we don't want to make it an obstacle. So we found ways with the many collaborating organizations, be it Ship2B, be it CEN or CHEN, be it B Corp, be it Ship2B, to actually find a way to lower the price by collaborating with us to 1,200. And if you have doubts whether this applies to you, please contact us. We reach out to young conscious entrepreneurs who we want to invite, because we want to give them a voice in the summit for 900. And actually, we have a day ticket for those that actually live in Barcelona, that don't need to sleep over at the beautiful retreat-like facility. So we want to make it accessible. That's the whole point. We want to make it accessible. Bottom line, we do want to speak and invite to people that actually buy into these two convictions in a certain way, excuse the wording, that actually believe that this is the right way, despite all the difficulties and challenges, to pursue a way in a more conscious way to build a flourishing business. So this is actually our invitation for those that believe it, wherever you are on that journey. It's never done anyway. And there's ample ways how to actually walk the business of growing as a conscious leader and building your business consciously. If this is what you're convinced is the right path to keep walking, we hope to meet you at the summit. With this, I'm going to open actually the series of Learnshops, and you will see in the sequence, all of the Learnshop leads actually are here on the phone. And I'm going to start myself because the Learnshop lead for what we call participatory leadership couldn't be here, but let me shed a couple quick notes on the Learnshops. Already the word indicates it's not a classic workshop. And let me emphasize, the Learnshops are not about teaching. I mentioned before that most of the learning happens by actively engaging. And I did mention it's about harvesting the direct experience of conscious leaders that have walked that path, that have made several experiences, good ones, bad ones, and grew by it. So the Learnshops then are more a place where selected
smartphone connected,
and you will be able to choose from them twice, where you should come together, and it's the energy of all of the participants that looks at where do we want to put our energy, be it around leadership, be it around culture, be it around purpose, be it around a roadmap. So do not think about it as somebody's going to tell me. We again want to engage everybody, highly participative in a co-creative mode. That's really the essence of the Learnshops. Let me talk a little bit now on the first Learnshop, participatory leadership. Participatory leadership, or I could use an even broader term, conscious leadership, is really about being systemic, being human-based, being ethical. And it has everything to do with leading oneself, or as the terminology says, hosting oneself. And I know that all of us, in a variety of fashions, have a way how to actually look inside. And I think most of us clearly acknowledge, unless you actually have a way how to look inside, learn, and actually develop as a leader inside, you cannot help develop others as a leader at the outside. So there's going to be one important aspect. There's actually going to be an aspect of hosting each other. How do we operate in relation to other people? Do we actually have an open mind? Do we have an open heart? Do we see the other as a human and not as a resource? There's actually a lot of aspects around hosting others' leadership styles in terms of being heartful, being careful, the element of care, the element of service, and the element of actually how much do I help others to strive and be at their best? Because at the foundational belief is all these people that actually help you in the business do want to do their best. It's a matter of creating the conditions that they can actually flourish and strive doing their best for themselves and, of course, for the business. That's what participatory leadership is about. And with this, I'm handing over to Anabel around conscious culture.
Thank you so much, Konstantin. My name is Anabel Dumlao. I'm really happy to welcome you to this call live or when you watch the recording. So I'm here to give you a sneak peek into the Learnshop on conscious culture eats strategy for breakfast, borrowing, paraphrasing the great Peter Drucker. Okay, so Konstantin already alluded to the individual learning journey, right, of a leader who wants to bring consciousness to her life. And we've worked with leaders for 20 years now who wanted to embark in that journey and found obstacles. Like how is this so, let's say, challenging at times? And we realized at a very, very early stage that working on one's leadership style alone is not enough. It's necessary. It's a necessary condition, but it's not sufficient. So we realized that there were other things that are greater than the individual desire to become more conscious and go through their own journey, introspective journey and outward journey, that we just came to call culture. And we started talking about the forces of culture in this way towards a more conscious and constructive way of working as the unnamed or intangible aspects of really creating that consciousness that we all want to see in the world through business. So what we will offer in the Learnshop is simply a frame so that we can share a language to talk about what we've experienced, what is a conscious culture for us, realize what is my behavior as a leader doing to shape a conscious culture? Are we making these systems, these symbols, and these behaviors an asset for our business to thrive? Or in turn, is the systems in place, our behaviors as leaders, and the symbols that we offer the organization rather becoming a hindrance? So is it an asset or a liability? So we would like to invite those who join the Learnshop to think in those terms. What can I do? How is my behavior shaping the broader culture? How do we make it more conscious in a way that systems, behaviors, and symbols are aligned? And how can we design the culture that we want? Because whether we like it or not, we have a culture already. But do we want the culture that we have by default because it's there? Or do we want to design it in a way that it becomes more conscious? So we're inviting the collective wisdom that's in the room. We will simply guide with some calling questions and bring and harvest all that collective intelligence so that we can capture it and then bring it on as a community to figure out what one thing have each of us tried to implement, what one change to our behaviors, to our systems, or to our symbols did we implement, and then learn and cross-pollinate from each other as to what effect that change has had, so that we can all learn what it means to evolve into a conscious culture. So that's the sneak peek. I'm happy to take any questions you may have at the end.
Thank you. Handing over to Jay on purpose.
My name is Jay Jakub, and I come from the Economics of Mutuality organization, which is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. My topic is really around the purpose-driven business that benefits all stakeholders. And so I guess I'd just like to start with a quote and giving you a sneak peek of what this is going to be all about, which is that purpose is like a light, and you don't turn on a light in a dark room to then stare at the light. An Oxford professor about 100 years ago made that observation, and I found it quite telling and quite insightful, because most companies actually look at purpose as getting people to stare at the light of the values, the light of the description of what it is that they do, when in actual fact, what we want to do is deliver purpose as strategy and make it actually impactful for stakeholders. So the idea of purpose being a light is to illuminate that dark room and to illuminate the problems of stakeholders in an ecosystem of stakeholders grouped around a sense of shared purpose that companies could then take a look at and see if there are some ways to release greater holistic value by creating interventions to actually mitigate some of the problems that are being faced by stakeholders in that neighborhood around purpose. So really the calling question for this Learnshop is really about whether or not your company, if you're attending this Learnshop, delivers purpose as strategy, and does it use purpose to orchestrate the right stakeholder ecosystem to do so, to deliver what it says that its purpose is. We'll talk about a number of different things, one of which is simply about the purpose of business. Someone once said that the purpose of business is not to create profit. That's not its purpose, that the purpose of business is actually to deliver profitable solutions to the problems of people, place, and planet, not to profit by creating problems for people, place, and planet. So that'll kind of be our starting point. We'll talk about how purpose could be made actionable and measurable, again, in a very interactive way to try to draw out the experience of each of the business people who will be attending. What is their experience with purpose, and how do they actually make it actionable, and do they measure it in any way? We may frame this with the three different archetypes of purpose that are out there, whether it's a description of the values of the organization, whether it's a description of the activities of the organization, or whether it's actually about solving the problem of someone else, which is something that actually can really help the company make its purpose actionable. We'll talk a bit about translating purpose into strategy through an ecosystem stakeholder approach that I alluded to in the beginning. How do you center purpose in your ecosystem as the lens through which you can identify the right stakeholders to populate that ecosystem to help you deliver what you say your purpose is? And how do you engage your whole workforce in the company's purpose journey? We'll explore a bit together about how purpose is addressed in respective companies. How is it made actionable through strategy? What kind of results are they seeing, and are they cognizant of how to articulate those results and to measure them? And how can a values or descriptive purpose archetype actually be turned into what we call a meaningful challenge? How can the purpose of a company, like at Mars, for example, which is about the world we want tomorrow, starts with how we do business today. It's a values kind of statement that's not very actionable, but there's ways in which you can work with business units and be consistent with that overall purpose, but actually be very specific about what problem you're solving for someone else, that then sets you down on the pathway to delivering purposes strategy. And then with the next step in mind after the Learnshop, I know this is very important to Konstantin and the other organizers, is that we leave with a sense of community, of mutually supporting leaders that can help walk together on this journey of co-creation to remove trade-off of profit to do good for people and planet. And so I think one of my objectives here is to make sure that we can start thinking about how do we end this stovepiped island mentality that many of us have of not being invented here, to open all of our minds to the fact that there are better ways of operating, more conscious ways of operating, to use Konstantin's language, and that we're not just stuck with one approach just because we stand where we sit. So that's kind of where I see this Learnshop going. And again, like Anabel, I'm very happy to entertain questions whenever you'd like, if you have any.
Thanks, Dave. I'll hand over to Peter for the roadmap.
Yeah, hi everybody, and hello from California. It's a little earlier than you guys have it over there. Our Learnshop is going to be about the roadmap to conscious business, and it's a little different Learnshop in that it's not repeated twice during the day, but it's a Learnshop that goes through the entire day, which I co-lead together with Timothy Henry. So we'll look at what it really takes to build a flourishing organization overall. Just for those of you who don't know Timothy, He's one of the co-founders of the conscious capitalism movement. He's worked with large organizations for the last, I think, 30 years or so, transforming Unilever and those kind of things. He's the co-author of the Conscious Capitalism Field Guide. I founded the Conscious Business Institute in 2005 after receiving an insight on the plane about conscious business. We've created a system to transform organizations systematically and have worked with large organizations all around the world, BMW, Starbucks, Intel, etc. So we'll look at the maybe the bigger brushstroke instead of going very, very deep. So what we do is really provide 5 steps on how to actually transform an organization. The first step is that we will sit together and actually look at what does it take to build a flourishing organization? What is a flourishing organization? What are the elements? What are the holdups? What are the things that are necessary to implement in your organizations, but also maybe from our perspective in what we've seen? The second step is then to look at the individual side. We look at the 3 circles from I, we, it, but we have to start with the individual because there's no system transformation without personal transformation. So we look at how can we transform our own consciousness? So it looks at conscious leadership, but it also looks at how we can create a place where other people are coming along, where an entire organization can be transformed to be more conscious. So how can employees step out of the movie theater and actually follow the leaders to a new movie theater that they want to go into? How can the systemic consciousness transformation happen? And then after that, Timothy will take over and he will speak about building a purpose culture and from his experiences. What does it take? What are the breakdowns? What are the holdups? What are the steps for building a purpose-driven culture? Then the 4th step will be that we'll bring it together and say, okay, now let's look at this. How can we implement the conscious leadership, transforming individuals inside an organization, and then building a purpose culture around that in an organization? What are the steps necessary? What are the strategies necessary? What are the stumbling stones that we need to pay attention to? And what are maybe the 3-4 main things that need to happen in order to make it work? And lastly, what we want to do is bring people together and have everybody leave with a commitment to do something. Maybe it's just one little step. Maybe it's a commitment to a larger endeavor. And also to join shoulders, because it's enough time walking alone on this path for many of us. So it's time to move closer together and build mastermind groups where leaders can support each other and share best practices and not do it by themselves, and stand together in the fire, maybe. So that's what we want to create going forward after the entire conference. So in summary, what we want to do is basically, first of all, create clarity for each participant, what it takes to create a more conscious organization. Secondly, to provide the pathways to get there, the steps, the concrete steps, and maybe some things to pay attention to. And thirdly, to join together and really create something that we're not doing alone anymore, but we can join forces in it. That's it from my side. It would be lovely to see you guys there.
Thanks, Peter. I'll go next. My name is Laura. It's nice to meet you all. Thanks for joining today's conversation. My role is a little bit different with my colleague Mathies. She could not be here today. We will be facilitating the summit and the evening event. We will be bringing in a methodology that's called the art of hosting, which is a method that's often used in conferences and events because it's a way to really support meaningful conversation, collaboration, and also support the collective intelligence of a group to come to life. So what we did was to look at the purpose of the summit, at the different elements and Learnshop and activities that we wanted to offer, and design a summit in a way that could really invite participations from every person that's going to attend. Because our aim is to really offer a space where everyone can bring in their own contribution, their own expertise, maybe their challenges, in a way that the knowledge does not only come from the people that will be on the stage, but they really offers a space for all participants to be fully involved and actually to make the days as meaningful and as valuable as possible to their own context. So the art of hosting is this methodology that can be applied in many different sectors, in business, as well as it's been used in also European institutions, in education, in different fields. But at the core of this approach, it's really understanding that new knowledge and new resources are unleashed when people find a different way to connect to each other. So what we want to do in these days is not just invite our brain and our knowledge, but to really invite us to show up as fully human, also with our emotional side, also with our relational side as well. So what we did was to curate these days in a way that it's not just a lot of information, but really an experience that that is created with the participants and for the participants. And there are specific methods and approaches that are part of art of hosting. So we tried to embed some of them as part of the program. So you'll also have a chance to experience some of them in person as well. So I'll stop here because I really want to make sure you have enough time to hear from you also what brought you to these conversations today and what are maybe your curiosity regarding the summit. And I'll pass it back to
Thank you.
Konstantin, because maybe we can hear from him of closing word.
Well, closing, kind of picking it up where we will close the summit. And you heard from Anabel, from Peter, from Laura, from Jay, around the different Learnshops. And when I refer to the closing of the summit, I refer to the 2 days, the 29th and the 30th of June. And I mentioned a couple times, and some of the Learnshop leads alluded to it, there is a continuity after that. We firmly believe and we subscribe to that continuity and the power of helping each other, supporting each other, challenging each other, daring together, and growing together. So the basic idea of the post-summit community activities is around starting, but not limited to the Learnshops, to offer a continuity. And Peter and Jay and others mentioned, you will focus in a co-creative, participative way on those relevant topics that matter to you to build flourishing businesses and to grow as a conscious leader. And the suggestion is very easy. Around the topics that actually meet your need and you have a lot of energy, let's build, call them learning circles, for lack of a better word. We're actually on a continuous basis, maybe even every 2 months, for a year, help each other and check in, challenge, grow, support the continuous evolving as a conscious leader, developing culture, purpose, the roadmap. There's a variety of topics that really should meet your needs. They will be cited, without going into any detail, with some inspirational conversations, interview style, that actually there's a lot of thought leaders, but I insist that they will be conversations where people engage and actually get continuous stimulation and ideas. We have the Echoline initiative to share specific conscious business best practices. Up and beyond people participating in the summit, you can imagine there's a lot of great business practices that have to do with human-centered, stakeholder, purpose-driven, conscious business experiences and practices that we want to bring forward and actually invite and share them. You see, we want to expand that community of conscious leaders as it comes together and keeps growing into the learning. That's the basic idea how we want to actually help all of us beyond the summit. Let me pick up where Laura left it. It was an invitation and specific to